Hello and welcome to the SMEFocus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. I'm your host this week to carry on the great work this show does in highlighting UK manufacturing and in particular SMEs. My guest today is Angela Lawlor, who is a passionate supporter of UK manufacturing and an advocate for encouraging youngsters into manufacturing industries. As it's the start of the year, we're going to talk about a potential New Year's resolution for manufacturing businesses. How do they reach out to their local schools? Hi, Angela. Welcome to SMEFocus.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for inviting me. It's lovely to see you again. And if it's not too late, Happy New Year to you.
It's never too late to wish for a Happy New Year, and let's all thrive in 25.
Absolutely.
So, Angela, I know looking at your LinkedIn and having talked to you in the past, you worked for a long time in the insurance sector and then for a couple of years for a well-known car manufacturer. And when we first met in the Comments Portal Network, you were a virtual assistant or offering virtual assistance. But can you give us a better run through of your background? Tell us a little bit about you, family, interests, etc.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I mean, insurance, I think like a lot of people, I actually fell into that by accident. It certainly wasn't something that I would have chosen to do. And certainly when I was working in the insurance sector, if we went to parties or social gatherings and people said, "What do you do?" and you say, "I work in insurance," normally you get a deafening silence. So, as I say, it wasn't something I sort of went into on purpose. But I have to say, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was really interesting. It was a constant learning curve. And I think that is what I like. I like learning. So for me, every day was a school day while I worked in insurance. Really, really enjoyed it. Worked for a small broker. And I think one of the things that really tied me to the job for so long was the fact that he was very open to new technology. He loved exploring new ways of doing things, and I do as well. So this is rolling back the years, in 1999, we actually went paperless in that office. I mean, that was so many years ago. And at that point, I also started working from home as well. So when we did the big working from home during lockdown, I'd been doing it for years. It was really good because, as I say, not only was he really open to technology, he also understood what it was like to try and be a working mum as well. So what I was able to do, I was able to come into work at 9:15 of the morning after dropping the kids off at school. I would leave at 3:15 to go and pick them up from school, go home, get them sorted out, log back into my computer, do another couple of hours on my computer from home. And that made a huge difference. It meant I could create a career for myself and still be a mum to the kids, be there for the kids, And as I say, I think that's probably why I stayed so long. It's probably the longest job I ever had with anybody. Because of those things, really. Love the technology, love the changes that we were always making within the business. As soon as we got everything settled and sorted, he'd throw cards up in the air again and we'd be like, right, okay, what are we doing this time, So again, I love change. I welcome it. I know a lot of people are frightened of it, but it makes for a really interesting life. So that was my insurance stint. Really enjoyed it. Left there because I realised that my career was not going to go any further unless I learned to play golf, which was quite sad, really. And I just felt a bit disillusioned and thought, I need to go and do something else. So I actually went back to temping, which is something I used to do when the kids were little. And a friend of mine was working at JLR at the time, and she said, we need somebody temporary for a month. Do you fancy coming in? So I said, yeah, great stuff. Sounds good to me. Sort of 3.5 years later, I was still there. And I'd moved between different departments, and I'd actually had a stint for 2 years within the corporate insurance team in JLR. Again, really interesting because I'd actually looked after the 20 overseas offices. So actually learning about insurance in different countries, again, huge learning curve for me. But really enjoyable. And of course, I got to work with the marketing team. So when they put the car around the loop, I was the one that had to look at what we needed to put into place insurance wise, so really interesting stuff. But so that sort of, when we went into lockdown, obviously they got rid of all of us contractors, and I just thought, what am I going to do now? I need to earn some money. Everybody's working from home. So I just thought, let's set up as a virtual assistant. Let's see if we can get some back office work coming in, supporting some SMEs, So it was good. It sort of, it kept me going through lockdown. It kept an income coming in for me, kept me busy as well, which is what I need. Because again, I'm the sort of person, I like to be busy all the time. So yeah, and that's when we met, isn't it?
Indeed. It seems strange to think about lockdown and all that, but wow, it's not that long ago, really.
I know.
Crazy world. So I think the background you gave, you sort of made it very clear your sort of passion and energy for change and embracing change and setting yourself hard challenges. So you then seemed to want to take on an even bigger challenge, which was founding the business Marvellous Manufacturing, which I tell many people about has been a truly marvellous business. So I think it's amazing. And the reason you're on today is to talk about Marvellous Manufacturing and how you go about trying to help businesses engage with their local schools, to make their process easy, but of course also to make the process more effective. So let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to set up Marvellous Manufacturing, and then tell us more about it, please?
Well, I think it was when I was, I was going to say it was when I was at JLR, but the last 12 months I've sort of looked back on the different jobs I've had over the years, and I hadn't realised, or it hadn't occurred to me, how much manufacturing had been a part of my life, my career. My first job when I left school was actually working for a box manufacturer in Birmingham. I was the invoice clerk when we used to have invoice clerks in those days. Yeah. But yeah, so sort of throughout my career, I have worked in various manufacturing environments. But when I was working at JLR, one of the things I did, which, as you probably know, is to set up this asset reuse scheme for them. So where we were looking at kit that had come out of the production line, end of life production line, and where we could use it in new production line builds. So I used to have to go down onto factory floor, full PPE, catalogue, photograph, all of the pieces of kit we've got, and then obviously look at where we could use it in other areas of the business. But I would be the only woman down there. I would be surrounded by middle-aged blokes. And I loved my job. And I was often crawling around robot cells, trying not to lose my hard hat on the gripper. But I absolutely loved my job. And I used to think, I don't understand why we haven't got more women doing this. Why aren't there more young people doing this stuff? Because I love it. I really did. There was just everything about that job that I loved. So obviously, when we went into lockdown, and as you say, we started up as a virtual assistant, and then I hadn't been on LinkedIn for years, so I thought I actually really miss manufacturing. Really, really miss it. So I thought I'll start making some new connections, new manufacturing connections. And as I started to build up my connections, I started realising that we had got this huge problem with getting young people into manufacturing. I couldn't understand it because for me, it's just such a brilliant industry. I love it. So I couldn't understand why young people weren't interested. So I felt I need to go and do some research here. So I started talking to careers leads and to teachers. And the message that came back was, we don't know anything about manufacturing. We don't get manufacturers coming to the schools. We don't know anything about it. So we don't tend to talk about it. And I realised that there was a huge gap. We've got a huge bridge that needed to be built here to get manufacturers into schools talking to the kids and to get the educators educated. And so this is why I set up Marvellous Manufacturing, because as you say, I've got such a huge passion for it. I want all the young people to feel like that as well. I want them to see what the possibilities are, what they could actually be doing, all the absolutely amazing stuff that we make in this country. I mean, I was at a manufacturer's a couple of months ago, rubber manufacturers, and they made all the elbow and knee parts for the Star Wars troopers for their outfits. And you think, whoa, did we really make those in this country? We do. We make some absolutely fascinating stuff. And I want the kids to see that and to be enthusiastic about it. They're our future. Sorry if I answered the question.
I think you've given a good answer for why, and I totally agree with I think it's great you stepped back and thought, but why aren't they attracted? Because I think so many of us are passionate about manufacturing. It's given us great careers, but also interesting careers and worthwhile careers, and therefore you wonder, why doesn't it draw people in? And obviously you picked up on the issue of the kids not knowing it, but particularly the educators who are such an influence on them not knowing. So I think it's brilliant explanation of what inspired you to set up Marvellous Manufacturing. But I guess the lead in then is, what does Marvellous Manufacturing do? How do you change this gap between the manufacturers and their local schools?
It's got to come down to the manufacturers themselves. This is really important, because I know I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn and people are saying, the government needs to do something about this, or our trade association needs to do something about it. But you know what? As a manufacturer, you need to do something about it. You need to take control, take this in your hands and go out and do this yourself. We talked about it, an aging workforce. Have you actually looked at the staff that work in your manufacturing facility and worked out the average age? Is it frightening? Are your people retiring soon? If you don't get into the schools and start connecting with young people, you're not going to have any business. I'm sorry, it's as simple as that. In fact, I'm doing a piece of work with some people at the moment in respect of fluid power. And they worked out, I think it was within the next 30 years, if they don't start getting more young people into the fluid power business, it will no longer exist. It's as simple as that. So, and that's quite a frightening stat, really, when you think about it. So it's really important that manufacturers, I know you're busy, but you have to take that step. And again, this is why I set up Marvellous Manufacturing. I understand most manufacturers are SMEs, they're family-run businesses, they're probably doing several jobs within the business. I understand they don't have time, but what I do is I help them create that time. I help them have that time, but they only have to use a small portion of it. So I do what I call all the grunt work. And then all they have to do is swan in like a film star, do the delivery and go home again. But what we're doing is we're starting to create that relationship with the schools.
Interesting. I think a particular side effect, or the second aspect of that as well, is those companies that are willing to embrace with their local schools. It's fantastic, but not only do you reduce how much resources required, you increase the likelihood of success, because all of us, the first time we do something, we're not brilliant at it, that we refine it. So by working with yourselves, you have refined the process. So a company not only uses less resource, they're more likely to be successful in what they're doing, and hopefully that means they're more likely to keep doing it and get some consistency.
Absolutely, Mark. And I think this is the important thing. It's probably that thing where they think this is a great big wall. I'm going to have to spend, days and days doing this school engagement. You really don't have to. I normally recommend 4 sessions a year, 4 one-hour sessions a year. So that's 4 hours a year to go into the schools. All of the work outside of that, all of the connecting with schools, all of the putting into place presentations, I write presentations, I write the scripts to go with the presentations, so you don't even have to think about what you have to say. But I work with manufacturers so that it's really easy for them to do this engagement. There is no excuse, there really isn't.
Fantastic. So it sounds like the service you're offering is quite, I guess, unique and quite different from all the other sort of STEM and training providers who, on the surface, you mentioned LinkedIn, maybe on the LinkedIn adverts, it seems they're doing what you're doing, but it sounds like what you're doing is much more unique and much more sort of defined. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes. And you know, we've got some great STEM providers out there. They're doing some brilliant stuff in the schools, but it's generic STEM. I don't do generic STEM. What I do is I work solely with a manufacturer. We create a bespoke program for them, look at what they're hoping to achieve. Are you hoping to take on apprentices? We create a program for them and we create a targeted campaign. It's as simple as that, so that we know exactly what we're doing. We know how we're going to attract those young people. We know how we're going to nurture those young people. And at the end of it, hopefully, we will have, you know, young people lined up to come and do apprentices with that manufacturer. Whereas STEM providers, as I say, they're generic. They talk to the kids about STEM to try and increase their interest. What we're doing is we are targeting and we are nurturing. So it is completely different from what others are offering. And I don't think I've not come across anybody else who does anything as specific as what I'm doing.
Okay, interesting. With the companies that you've worked with, what are their main objections to working with their local schools previously? What's held them back? And I guess maybe they're clearly motivated if they've employed you to help them do it. But what have you learned? What sort of objections, what sort of problems do you normally help people overcome?
It's always resource, Mark. It's a lack of time. That's the biggest issue for a lot of them. You know, I mean, I worked with 3 manufacturers last year who wanted to take part in National Manufacturing Day, but they understood that there were going to be a lot of questions from the school. There was going to be a lot of time involved in liaising with the schools, and they just don't have it. They have to run, as I say, a small family business. So this is why they bring me in primarily. One of the clients in particular last year, their local schools, it actually took 3 of the local schools, it took me 3 months to actually get a response out of them. Now, if you're a manufacturer and you're phoning and emailing 3 schools several times a week for 3 months, you're not going to get anything else done, are you? Yeah. They are really difficult to get hold of and really difficult. Once you've got hold of them and you've got their interest, it's great because then the tables turn and they're at you all the time. But it's actually getting to that stage, you know. So this is primarily why manufacturers bring me in, is because they know that I've got the time to do that for them and get everything set up. And obviously the other thing as well, especially in National Manufacturing Day, you can't just throw open your doors. You can't just say, right, we'll open the doors, everybody come in. There's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of planning that needs to go into it. We need to think about, how are we going to do the tour? Where are the children going to go to? Who's going to talk to them? What sort of language are you using to the children? Because we use a lot of technical terms within manufacturing. We also, you know, a lot of acronyms as well. To young people, that is gobbledygook. So we need to make sure that, you know, the staff that are talking to the students, they understand that they really need to dumb it down and make it interesting, obviously, as well. Can we do some activities? What can we do? So I work not just bringing the schools in, but actually with the manufacturers to help them to put together a really good program that makes for a great day.
Right. I guess we'll probably wrap up the questions about marvellous manufacturing in your experience by asking, do you have any top tips for people, maybe when they're starting out, to consider? Is there a demand for it, or how they should approach their schools? what tips do you have for manufacturers to start along the journey?
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, it's really hard work to get that relationship going with the schools. Once you've got it, it's good, but it is really, really hard work starting out. I think there are a lot of things you need to consider. I mean, first of all, if you're going to go in and do assemblies or what have you, make the delivery relevant. Think about how young people will relate to what you're talking about. Think about, do what you manufacture, will they see it in their everyday lives? Will they know what it is? So it's really important to think about that and how you can match it up. Think about who's going to deliver. Students respond really well to their peer group. So if you've got enthusiastic apprentices in your business, send them out. They'll do an absolutely banging job for you. And the kids will love it as well. Make it interactive. Encourage the students to get involved, ask them questions, or, even if you can do like a little mini workshop, getting them to design something. I did one in July with some students, and this was based on Christoph Convert. He's inventing a bottle recycling machine. So I worked with him and looked at what he was doing, and then I created a workshop and took it into school and said to the kids, right, here's some crayons and some paper, design a bottle recycling machine. And the things they come up with was absolutely great. It was brilliant, it was. So yeah, make it interactive so they've got something to do. If you can use visuals, obviously, if you've got video or what have you, it's much more interesting for the kids than having to sit around for half an hour listening to some old fart in a suit droning on, to be quite honest. So yeah, use some visuals. Remember, it's not just about STEM. Not everyone's academic. We also need creative people within manufacturing. So appeal to them as well. Tell them about how they can become apprentices, about different jobs that people do in your business. And last tip, sorry, I'm droning on. Last tip.
Please, no.
Enjoy it. Because if it's fun for you, then it'll be fun for them.
Sounds like quite a list to tick off, but a good list,
yes,
as I'd expect. So my final question is to ask, what have you got planned for the year ahead as we're in January? So what are your plans? What are your hopes? And are you going to enjoy it? So tell us more about 2025.
Yeah, absolutely enjoy every day. Make the most of every day is what I say. Already got people signed up for National Manufacturing Day 2025. So I'm already working with some clients on that. And, you may think, well, actually, it's not till September. But what we've got to remember is we need those schools committed before they break up for the summer holidays, because they need to be ordering coaches and we need to know that they are definitely coming before they break up. So that only gives us a few months, bearing in mind we've got Easter and 2 half terms between now and July. So it doesn't give us many weeks to actually do all the work that we need to do and get everything into place before the summer holidays. So this is why we start planning so early. So I've got those. I've got another few potential clients I'm hoping to go and see in the next few weeks. And obviously got another couple of clients who've just brought on board now who just want to do a basic schools engagement program. So working with them, looking at what we're going to do over the next 12 months to bring value to their business and make sure that we are nurturing their future employees.
Sounds like a big year ahead. Another one. Excellent. How do people find you? Obviously, you mentioned LinkedIn. So how do they find you on LinkedIn, and how are they best to contact you, Angela?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on there. So certainly have a look at my profile, send me a message. I think my email address and phone number are on my LinkedIn profile as well. Also got a website, www.marvelousmanufacturing.co.uk. Lots of stuff on there. For anybody who wants to engage but doesn't want to, come through me, you just sort of want to get in touch with your local schools. I do have a map on there. So there is a map of manufacturers who are interested in engaging with their local schools. And you can actually, all you need to do is you need to fill in a form. It's quite easy to fill in. Doesn't cost anything. Just specify how you would like to engage with the schools. Maybe you want to do a careers fair or assemblies, or maybe mentoring or work experience. Just tick the boxes that you want. I can get you on the map. And then when schools come on there looking for local manufacturers, they'll be able to find you. So that's another great way to maybe start your journey. But yeah, so either really, go through my LinkedIn profile, have a look at their webpage, and certainly get in touch, come and have a chat with me. Quite interestingly, speaking to a client just before Christmas, and she said, I don't understand why more people don't work with you. It's not as if you're expensive or anything. So obviously I'm not expensive. So come and find out how much it costs.
It seems like the perfect line to wrap it up on then, Angela.
Yes.
So thank you very, very much for your time. And I'll do the usual wrap up to the end of the show and ask people that if you'd like to get in touch with a comment, a suggestion, or particularly if you'd like to appear on a future episode, please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From me, Mark Weymouth, Plus Automation. Cheers. Have fun.